Wander Wealthy Podcast, episode 101 with Tori Dunlap. What is up, my friends? Welcome back to another episode of the Wander Wealthy Podcast. I'm Tess Wicks, your host. If you're new, welcome to the show. If you're returning, hey there, how you doing? Today I am joined by another fabulous female financial expert, and before I get into introducing her, I just want to say thank you to all of you who extended your congratulations on the Wander Wealthy Podcast reaching 100 episodes, and thank you to those who have left a review. I will be sending emails to the winners of the giveaway today. So you can expect that if you're listening to this episode on the day it is released, or maybe, you've already gotten your email if you were one of the 3 winners of the giveaway. So thank you so much, everyone who just gave me your congratulations, but I couldn't have done this without you. So I just want to say thank you to you as well for continuing to tune in to the show. In other news, I am in the middle of the Guilt-Free Spending System workshop, and we are having so much fun. If you are in the workshop, hello, how you doing? I'll be talking to you tomorrow. But I just wanted to say that if you are in the workshop, I think today's episode is going to be perfect for you. It's very close to what we're talking about, and Tori, my guest, which I will be introducing in a second, actually has some really great advice for us when it comes to spending, building more consciousness and awareness around our spending, being more mindful about that. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So as I had mentioned, my guest is Tori Dunlap. She is the founder of Her First 100K, which is a website, and she also does money coaching to provide women with actionable resources so that they can get to their first 6 figures too. So Tori will be telling you a little bit more about what the story is behind Her First 100K in the episode. And the other things that you can really expect is to learn a little bit about her story, which I find fascinating. She started her first business when she was 9 years old and had a really good grasp on her finances, which really helped inspire her to then start her now business, Her First 100K. And then we go into talking about how she is able to balance that business as a side hustle with her full-time job, which is in digital marketing. We get real about balancing the two and what that's really like, and how it's totally cool to have a full-time job when you are starting this business and running a business, and you also prioritize sleep and other fun things in your life. We then dive into the tangible tips, which is all around mindful versus emotional spending. I think we can all relate that there are things in our lives that we just sometimes spend on without really realizing it. And Tori gives some really great tips to build more mindfulness around what we're spending money on. But we also talk about the fact that, it's okay to want to spend money on things that may not seem like a smart, financially wise option, but are just, your things. And how important it is to not place judgment on yourself and the way that you spend money, as well as not placing judgment on others and how they spend money. Of course, we round out with some fun questions. First, understanding Tori's financial picture and what exactly that 100K that she's really aiming to save is specifically being saved for, and how it's being saved and where it's going. Plus, we get a little distracted talking about scams and scammers, but apparently both Tori and I have a thing for good scam stories. So you can hear some really great resources in that area and all the other fun things as we get into this interview. So let's not delay any longer. Here is episode number 101 with my guest, Tori Dunlap. Tori, welcome to the Wander Wealthy Podcast. Super jazzed to have you on the show. I'd love for you to just go ahead and introduce yourself, but I've already done the professional stuff, so I'd love you to dive into your story and how you got into this space of writing and talking about money and careers.
Yeah, so thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I'm Tori. I'm the founder of Her First 100K, and this money journey all stemmed from having a really great financial education when I was younger. So I was blessed to have a really awesome understanding of money from my parents, both in them leading by example, and also starting my first business when I was 9. So I ended up owning 15 vending machines by the time I graduated high school. All the profits went to my college fund, and then I later sold that business to a 10-year-old who also happens to be named Tori. So started off with a really great financial education, knew the business thing was rare, but thought that everybody knew how to manage their money. I thought everybody knew don't overspend on credit cards, negotiate your job offers. I thought that was pretty standard. And I realized graduating college that it's not. A lot of people didn't have the financial education I have, and women especially. We receive, I think, less financial resources. We're tasked with being less involved in our finances and less educated about money and investing and negotiating and all of these things. So I was the friend all of my friends came to for money advice, and I realized that I had resources and tools that were just an awesome privilege that my parents gave me that I could pass on to other women. So I'm on a journey to save $100,000 by the end of my 25th year, and I'm on track to do that. And her first 100K kind of stemmed from that. I had been writing about money and speaking about money for about 2 years and wanted to rebrand. And so about a month ago, my previous business, Victory Media, became her first 100K, which is all about getting women their first 6 figures, whether that's earned, saved, invested, debt paid off, whatever that looks like for them. So my journey is inspiring me to go out and give women actionable financial resources to live the life they want.
Oh my gosh, I love this. It's not every day that you find someone who's like, yeah, I learned a lot about money from my parents. And so this is such an interesting perspective. And I like to talk about childhood and money stories on the show because I think it really does shape at least part of our financial lives. And then whether we can understand what we learned either good or bad about money can really help us change our story. So I'd love to dive into that. Like, what was it that your parents taught you about money specifically, and maybe like your first memories of hearing about money and what you got from your childhood?
Well, I had the business thing, which was a whole other, a whole other
Where
can
did
of
that
worms.
come from? How did you learn about that?
That was my dad spontaneously deciding. He's been a salesman for 30 years, incredible at his job, really well revered in the Tacoma, Seattle area where I, still live, where I grew up. And he's just an incredible human being, and had a customer who owned vending machines. And they were the kind of vending machines where you put a quarter in, you get a handful of candy out, those kind of machines. And he randomly bought one day because his customers were just kind of looking to get rid of them, and brought it home. And I remember I was home from school, 9 years old, sitting in the family room. And he comes in with this machine and he plops it down in front of me and says, "Hey, do you want to start a business?" And 9-year-old me, who's ambitious and smart and reads too much and is bossy, is like, "Yeah, let's start a business." And it ended up just growing from there. So I had 15 vending machines by the time I graduated high school, and learned everything there is to learn about running a business. It was in no way novel, right? I didn't invent anything. I didn't go on Shark Tank, but I was learning profit and loss. I was learning how to pitch myself. I learned how to write a check when I was 10 years old. I was going into Costco, buying product and writing a check. I opened my first savings account. I was learning how to save money. I was learning, okay, I can't grow my business until I have enough money to do that. So I think I had my first machine for maybe a year and a half before I was able to buy my next machine outright. So all of that was an incredible learning experience just in running a business. Outside of that, I just had a great financial education from learning from my parents. They led by example. My dad, probably every 3 months or so, would call our cable company and negotiate our bill. Like, I saw him do that. I saw him sit on hold sometimes for 25, 30 minutes in front of the TV, or even sometimes with dinner. He'd sit there with dinner, and be on mute while the hold music played. And I saw him do that. I saw my mom have, 2 days out of the month, the same 2 days out of the month, where she'd sit down, balance her checkbook. They still use Quicken from like 1999. They have smartphones, like they've modernized in every other arena, but they're like, this still works for us. So I saw all of that happen. And I learned the value of saving money. I got my first credit card, I think, when I was 17 or 18. And there was a huge discussion around, okay, here's what this credit card is. We don't, spend anything. We don't buy anything that we can't pay off, pay that month. We don't carry a balance on the card. And these were conversations that I was having probably 4 or 5 years before I even got my first credit card. So I was just so lucky to not only have this business, which I knew was not normal, but also to have just conversations about money, to have parents that led by example. And you're 100% right. There's so many attitudes, or there's the attitude we have about money is largely shaped by how we grew up. I have a friend in Seattle who that's her thing is she just focuses on like our money mindset, specifically how our parents were with money. So depending on, how good or bad they were with money, their feelings towards money, was money a good thing? Was money an evil thing? A lot of that will shape how we personally think about money in, as we grow up into adulthood. So I was just really, really blessed to have a great financial education, and I'm looking to give the same resources that I had to other women.
Do you think there's anything that you learned either from your parents or maybe other influential people that were around you in childhood that don't or didn't serve you that you've had to shift in your adult life?
Let me think about that. Well, I don't think it came from any one source, but I think society tells women, right, that money is not really our place. Mm-hmm. And even if that is never stated like that, I mean, Wall Street, right? The number of men who work in finance, the fact that a bull and a bear and these very like masculine symbols, are what we associate with Wall Street and finance. And so I think society has conditioned us women to think that, money's not our place. And so I think that's the one thing every woman has to do, and especially women who are minorities, women who are queer, they face even more obstacles to this. So I think finding resources and tools to be able to own your own money is so important, especially as a woman. I say that having a financial education is a woman's best form of protest, because money truly gives you the freedom to make choices in your life. Like I ended up getting in a really unhealthy job that I had to quit after 10 weeks without another job lined up. It was just so toxic. And I was able to do that because I had an emergency fund. I was able to make that life choice for myself because financially I had the flexibility to do that. So that's probably the biggest reason why I started Her First 100K, was to give women actionable tools and resources to leave an unhealthy relationship and move into their own apartment, to leave an unhealthy job, to quit a 9-to-5 and start their own business, to take a vacation, retire early, buy that thing they've always wanted to buy. And I think that's so important to frame money in terms of having freedom and providing for yourself and your family, as opposed to, something that's out of your control, something that somebody else handles, or, as a source of greed. Because money is definitely that. It can be greed, it can be corruption, but it can also mean freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of people have their own scripts running about what money is. And again, that can come from a lot of programming you get from childhood, but it's never, when you get more money, it's never like you're going to turn into someone else. It's really just adding more fuel to your fire of what you want to do. Unless you're a greedy person, then you're going to just be a greedy person.
Yeah, and that's going to happen regardless of, you're exactly right, whether you have $1 in your bank account or $10 million. Like, you're going to be, I think, the same person. Money might change your lifestyle a little bit, right? But at the end of the day, if you're charitable, you're going to be charitable regardless of whether you have no money or a boatload of money. Or, if you're family focused, you're going to be family focused whether you have no money or, thousands and thousands in your bank account.
Yeah. Very cool. And this is so cool that you're involved in this work, because you also have a full-time job.
I do.
And I would love to dive into that. This is kind of like your side hustle. Maybe, I don't know if you're planning on making it someday full-time, but why is it for you, like, how are you able to manage that? Why is it important to still have this extra income coming in? And how do you stay motivated to balance both probably very, busy schedules and workloads?
Well, one of the cool things is that my 9 to 5 actually is a financial tech company. And I did that very intentionally because I'm able to leverage my contacts in the personal finance space for them and vice versa. So I work for a company called Tomorrow. They do a will, trust, and life insurance from an app. So our big thing is giving a free will to every family in America because so many people either can't afford estate attorneys or don't want to deal with it, don't want to deal with the hassle. And so we've made it really simple and easy to do. So I run marketing for them for my 9 to 5, and I love that job. Love the mission of the company. Love the people I work with, and it happens to coincide really well with what I do, on my side and on the side and in my business. And I did that very intentionally, and it took a while. I had Victory Media was the name of my business before. So I've ran Victory Media for about 2.5 years. And so I was working in jobs that, didn't fit as well. And I think balance is just hard. It's hard. I hate when people act like it's easy or act like, the hustle is real. And I'm like, yeah, you have to work hard. But at the same time, it's hard to balance both. And it's hard to take care of yourself. So I prioritize sleep. I prioritize sometimes good food or good for me food. But like sleep is the big one for me. Like I get at least 7 hours of sleep every night. And that's pretty non-negotiable. Because I like to say, like, I am my own product. If I don't get sleep, if I'm not taking care of myself, none of the rest of this happens. As far as the actual balance, it's a lot of good scheduling. I actually hired a virtual assistant, a VA, a couple months ago, and that was really the first time I'd ever invested in my business like that. And it's been a great experience so far, and taken a lot of the mundane tasks that I don't really have time for off my plate. And I really am focused this year on the ROI of my time. So that was one of the decisions I made very intentionally, of saying, okay, where can I use my time that's really going to pay off in terms of impact, not only for, financially for my business, but also in terms of just giving women tools and resources and being there and serving my clients and serving the people who come to her first 100K. But yeah, this is a long way of saying balance is hard. Like, it's not easy. And I love being able to have a side hustle. Like, I think it makes me more valuable as a 9 to 5 employee. It makes me happier because I have a very mission driven company. I love what I do. And that's really what drives me. Is I get off the phone with a client, or like I have a coaching session tonight with a woman local to Seattle. And I know that the energy from that 1 hour session will carry me through the rest of this week, just because I have this fire in my belly to get women money and to fight wealth inequality. And it's my favorite thing in the world. And when I get off the phone, or leave a session, I have this energy that it's so hard to describe, but that's what keeps me going.
That's very cool. And I think, your point about admitting, like, balance is hard, and sometimes you have to leverage your other resources. Like for you have a full-time income, and a lot of people might say, well, I have to use this income to do certain things, and then that's why I have this side hustle. But like, you can also leverage maybe your full-time income or piece of that side hustle income to invest in someone like a VA that can clear up more space and allow you to produce even more. And it's really understanding and kind of being able to spot those investments too that help you become more financially and like time successful, just like successful overall, to be able to manage such a pressing schedule like that.
Yeah, I went on kind of a rant on Instagram about this it was a couple weeks ago. 9 to 5s get a bad rep. Like in the entrepreneurial, hashtag girl boss community, it's like, oh, you have a business? Like, why are you not quitting your 9 to 5 to do your business full time? Like, that should be your immediate goal. And I just think that's terrible advice for a variety of different reasons. Financially, like, I could not support myself on my business, at least how it stands right now. So I couldn't do that. It's also like the 9 to 5 gives me the stability and the flexibility to be able to go and have a business, because I know what my paycheck's going to be every month. I have health insurance, I have a place to go. I feel more motivated when I have a 9 to 5. When I went through when I went through my period of unemployment last year after, taking a terrible job for the money and that whole story, I was unemployed for 3 months. And I remember thinking, oh, okay, well, the upside to this is I'm going to have a ton of time to work on my business. And for whatever reason, I just couldn't motivate myself to do it. Like I was not motivated at all. And so I find the energy from the 9 to 5 keeps me going as well. And just, I just think it's really terrible advice to say that a 9 to 5 is holding you back from your business, because for me, that could not be more wrong, because it's truly giving me the flexibility. Like I don't hate my business. I think, I've talked to a lot of friends who run their businesses full time and they love it 80% of the time, but the 20% of the time, like they kind of hate it. They hate running their own business because they start to hate the mission of it, because you're not only doing it for fun or because you believe in it, but you're also doing it to make sure that, you get paid. So you're chasing invoices and you're working with people who, sometimes don't pay you at all, or maybe for months on end. So I love having a 9 to 5 and a side hustle. And I was lucky enough to find one that really benefits my business and that I can really benefit because of my business.
I'd like to transition here into some of the tips that I know you are comfortable speaking around, and I think you'll provide some really good insight on. We have to get comfortable with being willing to make certain sacrifices or understanding where our money is going. And with you, it's like being willing to invest in VA, and then also, managing your money on all other levels that money needs to be managed. But I think what stops us a lot, or what stops most women when it comes to like getting their financial shit together, for lack of a better term, is the spending. And one thing that I know you can talk about is emotional versus mindful spending. And for a lot of people, I feel like for a lot of people, they don't even realize that they might be emotionally spending versus being mindful about their spending. So I'd love to just like crack open the doors and be like, this is a thing, and have you talk a little bit more about it and introduce the topic.
Yeah, let's do it. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. The number one thing I hear from clients, because I do one-on-one coaching. So the number one thing I hear is, I don't know where my money goes every month. And I think that's an incredibly common problem. That comes even from people who say like, oh, I have a budget, but I just don't know, like that money seems to disappear. So there's a couple things. One, I counsel pretty much all of my clients, and I actually created a product around this because I was having them do it so often, is a money diary. We see these, we read them a lot. Like Refinery 29 has a whole money diary series where people just basically catalog, everything they purchase for a week or for a month and how much it cost. I created a product that goes one step further than that. And it hits on exactly what you said, the kind of mindful spending and curbing emotional spending. Because yes, it's useful to write down, okay, I had a mocha at Starbucks and it cost $4. But I have them do something even more intentional, which is write down why they made that purchase and how it made them feel, which I think is the most important part of spending. I also have them write down the top 3 things that they're willing to spend money on, that they like spending money on, that bring them joy. And I have this all in what I call a cash calendar that's on my website for purchase. But I have them be really intentional about, here are the things that you and I are 100% okay with you purchasing. Paula Pant, who's a lovely personal finance podcaster, writer, she has the phrase, you can afford anything but not everything. And I love that, because for some people, that daily coffee brings them so much joy. And I'm never going to tell you as a client or as someone, who DMs me on Instagram, I'm never going to tell you to not buy that coffee if it doesn't, if it brings you joy. But if you're drinking that coffee out of habit, or out of, if you don't even taste that coffee anymore, there's change that needs to happen there. So I have them write their top 3 priorities. Me, for example, I love meals out. I love good food. That's one of my priorities. Travel is one of my priorities. I love taking trips. I love seeing the world. My third priority is living alone. I think you have a question later about like what expense is non-negotiable for you. That is my non-negotiable expense. Living in Seattle alone is pretty gosh dang expensive, but I do that because I like walking around naked and I like leaving dishes in the sink if I want to, and I like having my own space. So those are the things I'm okay at spending money on. For me personally, I don't like dropping $300 on a coat. Like, unless that I know that coat is an investment that I'm going to wear every day for, the next 5 years. Like, clothing, shopping, fashion just doesn't bring me joy in that way. But for somebody else, it might. So by not only reflecting on your priorities, but then going through your spending for a month and acting like an anthropologist. Like, I tell my clients, do this practice with no judgment. You're not going to kick yourself. You're not going to talk down to yourself. You're not going to even make any changes yet. You're just going to view yourself. So, okay, she bought a cookie. Why did she buy that cookie? She bought that cookie because her boss made her feel bad at her job today, and she wanted her cookie to feel better. Interesting. Or, insert cookie with shoes or whatever. Or, it was my boyfriend and I's, 2-year anniversary, and we went out to dinner, and that was a great purchase because it allowed us to spend some really quality time together and celebrate our relationship. And after about a month of doing this, you'll start to see, okay, what are my emotional triggers? Where am I spending my money that I don't even think about it anymore? It just kind of, I just swipe my credit card or it just flies out of my hand. So being really intentional about getting back to those priorities. What brings you joy? What are you okay spending money on? Where do you want your money to go? What kind of life do you want? Everything else needs to be reevaluated.
Yes. And I love that you bring up the point that it's really about finding the top 3 things that you're willing to spend money on and that, bring you joy and are top priorities, because I think we can sometimes go too far to the other side where it's like, yes, I'm trying to budget, but then that means I can't buy anything and I'm going to budget everything out of my life. And I think frugality, but even more so, like even budgeting or being financially literate and managing your money gets a bad rap because of the like ultra frugal, like couponers, which, if that's your jam, that's your jam. But I've had a hard time of breaking my own self-judgment, but also judgment of others on how they spend their money. And I've had to do a lot of work on reprogramming, like how people see value in different things is like entirely their business, and how I see value in things is entirely my business. And, also those priorities might shift over time too. And I have to be okay with that and not go, well, this isn't a frugal thing to do.
Yeah. You said 2 incredible things there that I want to touch on. The first, food diets don't work. They don't, because if you tell yourself you can't have fried chicken, by the way, fried chicken's like my favorite thing in the world. If you tell yourself you can't have fried chicken, all you're going to want is fried chicken. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So to your point of like saying, okay, you can never buy a coffee or you can never buy this or that or this or that, like it also takes all the joy from your life. Like if you have a really robust savings goal, like even I have a really robust savings goal, and I have to think every day, like, okay, especially now that my business is branded around this goal.
Right.
Like
it's public now.
It is public, and people I don't know if anybody's going to hold me to it, but I think about a lot like, okay, well, I could not go on this trip that I want to go on and maybe save it for later in order to make sure I hit my goal. But I'm like, you know what? Life's too short for that. Like if I have the money now and I've budgeted for it and I want to go, and maybe it ends up, I don't get my 100K till I'm 26 and a half. That's still a pretty great goal. And it was it was a goal I just imposed on myself, So I think about that a lot of like diets don't work for food and they don't work for money either. Like telling yourself you can never, ever have anything, it just doesn't work. The second thing is, I love what you said about judgment, right? We hear a lot, especially in the personal finance community. I think there's a big revolution right now of like judgment-free advice. Like we hear about the latte factor a lot, and the latte factor is the thing that's ruining your finances. The latte factor is basically, the daily coffee you spend is somehow wrecking your finances and keeping you from being rich. And that's just not true. If that brings you joy, like I don't buy a daily coffee. I'm not a coffee drinker. Sometimes I will have coffee. I like see sounds because of it. I'm absolutely crazy on coffee, but sometimes I need it. And then I go and buy coffee, but I'm not a daily coffee drinker. But I am never, both as a friend and a money coach, going to tell you that you cannot do that just because it doesn't reflect my own priorities if it truly brings you joy. So I have the same thing you did where I'm still going through it of like, how do I not judge people based on not only their financial choices, right, but just their life choices. Right. Just because somebody's, financial choices do not reflect the choice I would make doesn't mean it's wrong, and especially doesn't mean it's wrong for them.
Yeah. And that's so true. I mean, there's just so many instances, like in that case, you see coffee and to you, it's like, it's basically worthless. But to someone else, like me, I drink coffee every day, although don't get much takeout coffee in Italy since it basically doesn't exist here, and it really breaks my heart. But yeah, like because of that too, I'm like, oh my gosh, if I could get a takeout coffee every day, I would, because there's that value around it. But it's because I'm me and I love that thing. It's one of the things I desire for and I place value on versus someone else who doesn't.
Yeah. And I think there are ways to take your priorities too. Like, coffee, there might be times where, maybe you invest in a really expensive coffee machine for your house, but that's a great upfront investment because you're not going to be spending $5 on a coffee out every day. So there's ways to make even your priorities cheaper or more accessible or like better investments for your lifestyle. And sometimes I work with my clients on that too, where, if they're going and they're buying, they're dropping quite a lot on clothes and like they haven't downloaded maybe like a tool like Ebates or asking about discounts or shopping at secondhand stores, that's also an option I offer of like, I'm not saying we have to cut this out. I don't want you to cut this out, but there are ways that you can make it cheaper.
Yeah. And a lot of the times it depends on the type of client and their situation, but also their goals and how much they really need to cut down versus making sure you're hitting your goals and then not holding judgment against like allowing yourself the other thing that you want to splurge on or that is that high priority.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Cool. Okay. I had other questions, but you basically answered all of them. It's like, how can we become more mindful of our spending? What are some best practices? Basically, download your cash calendar and we will definitely send people to that. So I'd love to move on to the money round, which is more personally getting to know you and your financial situation, how money is flowing through your life. I'd like to start off by just understanding your money plan, meaning how do you make money? What do you spend your money on? And what are you saving for? Like breaking down this 100K into the different buckets.
Yeah. So I make money through my 9-to-5 job. I lead digital marketing at this company called Tomorrow. And so that's how I make the majority of my income. I do make some income through my business. I usually don't end up touching that money for actually the entire year until I pay taxes on that money. And then I analyze where it's going to go. And that's the luxury, again, I have of living off a 9-to-5 income, of not needing to touch the side hustle money until, unless there's an emergency or until I make sure that, I've taken the cut I need for taxes. The majority of my savings, especially once I hit 100K, will be locked up in investment accounts. So the majority of that will be saved in retirement. I also have a non-retirement investment account. Because I don't have a 401k or a retirement plan through my work, I have a Roth IRA, a SEP IRA through my business, as well as a non-retirement investment account. All of those are through TD Ameritrade, who I love. And I have an emergency fund. I have a day-to-day checking and actually a savings account as well linked to that. I have a business savings. I'm trying to think what else. What else did you ask about? Oh, just savings plans. I think the biggest thing right now is, just getting me to that 100K. And that is going to be 100K of total savings, retirement, emergency, investments, all of it. So that's really the number one goal. I am, I have my eyes sit on the horizon for. And beyond that, I mean, being a homeowner in Seattle is so expensive. So that's something that hypothetically I want to start thinking about, but is really just not feasible and is not where I want to spend my money right now. I like renting. I think renting gets a bad rep. Like I like not being able to, or I like not having to take care of, the pipe that bursts and having somebody else take care of that for me. And yeah, it's really hard to buy a house in Seattle or buy an apartment or a condo or whatever that looks like. So, I don't know what my next goal is after 100K, but that's what I'm working towards right now.
Yeah. And I think life unfolds as it will and
totally
figure that all out. What are you spending your money on? Where do you find that most of your money goes?
Yeah, I mean, rent is a good chunk of my money. I think I still keep it under 30% of my income, which is kind of, the rule you hear in finance. But, I mean, that's a good chunk. I have a car that I will have paid off early they wanted to put me on a 6-year car loan. And I was like, no, 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 no. So I'm on a 4-year car loan and I'll still probably pay that off early. That's the only debt I have. I was really lucky to graduate without student loan debt. And I talk about that as part of my 100K journey, that I, was privileged enough to not only have my parents support me emotionally, but financially. But that was a very collaborative process. Like I worked all throughout college. I got a bunch of merit scholarships. And so, kind of a team effort, I was able to graduate without student debt, which was phenomenal. So yeah, my car is the only thing. That's probably my second biggest expense. That's the only debt I still have. I'm trying to think beyond that. I really, like I said, my kind of 3 priorities. I love going out to eat. That's my big kind of fun expense. I love travel. I probably go on 2 bigger trips a year. I actually have unlimited PTO at my company that I haven't really taken advantage of. And so I'm really excited to do more of that this year. And then, living alone. I pay an expense and, an additional added expense because I don't have roommates. Probably the big 2 are rent and my car. And then as far as fun stuff, tends to be a good meal out.
Very cool. Thank you for getting very detailed about that. It's fun to hear from people who are like, oh, I do this all the time. Let me tell you everything, where all my money is going. We're going to go into the quick and dirty Q&A round. These are just a couple fast-paced questions to wrap up the show. And the number 1 first question is, what is your most used app on your phone that isn't social media related?
Oh, man. I want to say email, but that seems like a cop-out. That doesn't really seem like an app. I use Tomorrow, the company I work for. Shameless plug for Tomorrow, but I use that app quite frequently because I'm in there, answering customer questions or moving through the app for UX purposes. So I'm in the Tomorrow app pretty frequently. What else? I want to pull up my phone and look. Where do I go? I mean, Spotify. Spotify is one of those things that I will never not pay money for. Spotify Premium was a huge lifesaver. I discovered it before I went abroad to Europe. I studied there for a semester in Ireland, and I had all these playlists saved, and that was just phenomenal. So probably Spotify and Tomorrow.
Yes, awesome. What is one totally random thing that you just can't stop thinking about lately?
Oh, scammers. Oh, they're they're my favorite thing to read about. Anna Delvey from last year, the German Russian heiress. Oh, yes! I'm obsessed with her. She has, just her story was so ridiculous. And of course, I like to say, because I get really hyped, it is terrible what they did. I don't condone it whatsoever, but oh my gosh, it's so fascinating to me. And I don't know why. I've been on an Elizabeth Holmes kick recently, who is the founder of Theranos, of course, the failed blood test company that said, made all these claims that you could do a ton of blood tests with a finger prick of blood, and ended up being a total scam. So I binged a podcast about her in probably a day and a half. It was an entire show about her. And I click on anything Elizabeth Holmes related when it pops up in my timeline. So I'm just really fascinated by it, by not only who they are as people and the depths they have to go through to craft the personality that they want everybody to see, but also just how they're able to get away with it for so long. Like the Fire Festival, that's another one. I watched both documentaries. I thought about that for a week and a half after. And I'm a sucker for any sort of scam news or podcasts or anything like that. The Grift is a great podcast as well. I don't think they make it anymore, but they go into a different scam every episode throughout history. And oh, I love it. It's so good.
Okay. The Grift. I'm going to have to check that one out. I am so mad because they don't do Hulu here in Italy, so I can't see the other documentary. And I'm like, I know I'm seeing it one-sided.
I promise the Netflix one is better, or at least that's my opinion, but I think the Netflix one is better. You do get added things in the Hulu one that Netflix doesn't cover. But you do have the better one. I think you have the better docu. So
Okay. And then the Anna Delvey.
Delvey, I think. I don't know. Yeah.
Are they going to make a movie out of that?
They are. Jennifer Lawrence is playing her, I think, and Shonda Rhimes is involved in some way. So that's going to be good. But I kind of hate it actually that they're making a movie about her because they've done interviews with her. She's in jail. Like, I think she's awaiting trial or something's going on. And literally the only thing she wants to talk about is like, who's playing me in the movie? So she has no remorse, like no understanding of like the lives she's wrecked. She just wants to know what famous actress is playing her in the movie. So I almost like don't want a movie to be made because I don't want her to have the satisfaction of that. But also the like terrible part of me is saying, just give me the movie.
Right. And is that a New York Times article or something?
There was a couple different places. I think, was it Vanity Fair? The one that was really famous was she befriended a photographer from one of the big publications. I want to say it was Vanity Fair. And so it's actually a first person account from that photographer because she was the one that ended up going to Morocco with Anna, and Anna's card got declined. And so she ended up having to put this like $78,000 trip on her own personal credit card.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah. And that's how I first found out about her. But I think this past summer is when it kind of hit a fever pitch of everybody talking about it. So yeah, it's just so fascinating to me.
I'll link all of those up so everyone can get into a scammer binge.
Oh, it's so good. Good luck getting out. Like if you want to like have a normal life and have 3 hours back of your time, like don't read any of it. Cause once you're in the rabbit hole, you're gone. Like you're done.
Amazing. Okay, moving on. Who is your favorite person to follow on social media?
Jenna Cutter. She does some incredible work on social, especially on Instagram. She's done an incredible job of creating a brand that people trust, that is authentic without, violating her own and her family's privacy. And she's one of those people that I think truly is focused on serving people first before selling. And she's taught me a lot about how to run a business and how to support women in a really authentic way. So she started as a photographer. She still does some photography, but she's mostly a podcaster and an educator. And she's just an incredible woman. Just recently had her first baby too. And I think her story is really incredible around her fertility journey and her bravery in sharing that. I think she suffered 2 miscarriages and now has a beautiful baby girl. And I don't know her personally. I've never met her. She is kind of one of those people in the stratosphere of Instagram, but that's a true testament to what she's built. The fact that, I can name her husband, I can talk about her fertility journey, and I can talk about her business. So again, she's done a really great job of building a brand for herself that not only, respects her own privacy and respects her own guidelines and the things she wants to keep to herself, but also lets people in a really cool way.
Yes. I follow her too. And when you said that, I was like, yeah, I know her. Like I grew up with her, but I didn't. It just feels like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
okay.
Yeah.
Right. We know the expense you'll never cut from your budget. So let's talk about your favorite money book.
Ooh, my favorite money book. I love the ladies over at TFD, The Financial Diet, and they put out a really cool book. What I love about their money book in particular is it's not just about actual financial tips or investing, but it's about like recipes that are, cheap and easy to make and that will wow at a dinner party, but not blow your budget. And that's one of the things I love about their site. Chelsea Lauren and that whole team, they've done a really great job of making, these financial topics accessible in a way that's not just about money. That's about, food and how you cook and how that can save you money, and shopping and how you can, buy really beautiful, well-made things, with an intentionality behind it. So I love their book. I love their site, and I love their mission. They're friends of mine, and I contribute for TFD on occasion, and they're just doing incredible things over there.
Cool. We will link that up. Tori, thank you so much for coming and sharing all these wonderful tips and thoughts and ideas. And it's just been such a fun time to chat with you and dive down some various rabbit holes and get really passionate about various things. I would love it if you could tell us where we can find you so we can follow along and stay in touch.
Yeah, I'm at herfirst100k.com. So her first spelled out FIRST 100k.com. Free resources as well as signing up for coaching, purchasing a cash calendar. You can follow me on all the socials there. But yeah, I'd love new community members. I love being able to serve women. So come say hi.
Thank you so much, Tori.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a great time.
All right, that is it for this episode, number 101 with Tori Dunlap. You know where to go in order to get the deets, the resources, the links from this episode. Just head on over to wonderwealthypodcast.com/podcast/episode 101. Now, before I let you go to enjoy the rest of your day, I wanted to make a quick announcement. If you've been exposed to the money program or the invested program in any way, shape, or form, but have not jumped and dove on into it quite yet, I just want to say I will be raising the prices of both of these programs in probably a month or so. I will let you know via email when I expect to be raising the prices and kind of give you like a 5-day countdown. But I also just wanted to let you know now here on the podcast because you guys are my OGs, you guys are my diehards, and I wanted to let you know in case you are really looking for an opportunity to get your financial life together, start really understanding investing. The solutions that are provided in both of these programs are helping you become more empowered around your finances, whether it's specifically around investing, which the invested program would be perfect for, or it's more of a comprehensive look of budgeting, cash flow, dealing with debt, starting to look at saving and investing, but not quite in depth. The money program is for you, or the invested program. You can check out both of the homepages for these programs and see which one is right for you. But I just wanted to let you know the prices you see on these homepages will be going up in the near future, I would say about a month from now. So letting you know, go to wanderwealthy.com/TMP, short for the money program, to check out the money program, or you can go to wanderwealthy.com/invested, or just go to wanderwealthy.com, go to the work with me tab, and then you should be able to get linked to those programs. But it is your last chance to get in at this current price. So if you're thinking about it, if you're on the edge, but you haven't been willing to commit quite yet, let this be your last opportunity at this rate, basically. Otherwise, you can always say, you know what, it's not the right time now. I'm willing to pay the higher price because I know my finances are important and it's going to be worth it no matter what price I pay. I'm excited for you based on whatever choice you make, and I'm always constantly rooting for you. So that is all that I have for today. I hope you have a wonderful, beautiful rest of your day, no matter what the weather is, no matter what the circumstances are. Do enjoy and get out there and wander wealthy.